It was just a test. That's what she said, standing in our kitchen with her arms crossed, like she was proud of herself. Like she hadn't just set my chest on fire. I remember the exact second something inside me shut off. No yelling. No shock. Just this cold, sinking clarity. She kept talking, smiling a little, explaining. Her friends had dared her, encouraged her, told her it was normal. She wanted to see what I'd do if she said she was thinking about leaving. She wanted to see if I'd beg, panic, promise to change, fight for her. She said it casually, like she was telling me she switched phone plans. I needed to know how much you care, she said. Relax. It wasn't real. But here's the thing. While she was testing me, she was already emotionally packed. She had rehearsed my reaction. She had accepted the idea of walking away. She had watched my face carefully, measuring my worth in real time. I asked her one question. My voice didn't even sound like mine. And if I failed your test? She shrugged. Actually shrugged. I guess that would tell me everything I need to know. That's when I understood this marriage wasn't hanging by a thread. It had already been cut. She just wanted to see how I'd bleed. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't plead. I didn't ask her to stay. I just nodded. And that's when her confidence flickered for the first time. Before all of that, before the word test poisoned everything, I would have told anyone we were fine. Not perfect, but solid. The kind of marriage that looked stable from the outside. We had routines, shared bills, inside jokes, weekend plans that mostly happened. She used to laugh easily, used to lean into me on the couch without thinking, used to text me during the day for no reason at all. I held on to those memories longer than I should have, using them as proof that what we had was real. We'd been together long enough that comfort replaced effort. At least, that's what I thought. I was still showing up, still trying to talk things through when we argued, still believing that loyalty meant pushing through rough patches instead of questioning them. Looking back, I realized I was the only one doing that. Somewhere along the way, she stopped treating the marriage like a partnership and started treating it like a safety net. Something that would always be there, no matter how careless she got. She talked more about what she deserved and less about what we were building. If I brought up distance, she brushed it off. If I mentioned feeling shut out, she said I was being dramatic. I learned to swallow things just to keep the peace. I told myself this was normal, that long relationships go through quiet phases, that love doesn't always feel loud. What I didn't understand yet was that while I was trying to protect what we had, she was already experimenting with the idea of life without me. And the test wasn't the beginning. It was just the first time she said it out loud. Looking back, I can't separate her shift from the people she started surrounding herself with. Her friends were always around before, but suddenly they were everywhere, in her head, in her decisions, in the way she spoke to me. There was one in particular, Rachel. Loud, recently divorced, always talking about knowing your worth and never settling. Every conversation with her sounded like a motivational podcast mixed with bitterness. After nights out with that group, my wife would come home different, more distant, more critical, like she'd just been coached. She started repeating phrases that didn't sound like her. Men get comfortable. Women give too much. You shouldn't have to explain yourself to anyone. The first time she said, I don't owe anyone anything, I remember thinking it felt rehearsed, like it wasn't even meant for me, like I was just the audience. Her friends joked about testing their partners, about seeing how they'd react, about setting traps to measure loyalty. I'd hear it secondhand and laugh it off, but something about it made my stomach tighten. They treated relationships like games, power moves, emotional experiments. And slowly, my marriage stopped feeling like a partnership and started feeling like a trial I didn't know I was taking. Anytime I expressed concern, she'd say, "You're just threatened by my friends." Or, "They're just being honest. You're too sensitive." Suddenly, I wasn't a husband with feelings. I was a problem that needed correcting. I didn't realize it then, but their voices were getting louder than mine, and she was listening to them more than she was listening to me. That was the beginning of the imbalance. The moment outside opinions started outweighing the person she married. The disrespect didn't start with shouting or insults. That's what fooled me. It came quietly, dressed up as jokes and honesty. She'd interrupt me mid-sentence and finish my thoughts for me, incorrectly, then roll her eyes when I corrected her. She started making decisions without telling me and acting annoyed when I asked questions, like I was slowing her down. If I disagreed, she'd smirk and say, "You're overthinking it." As usual, little things piled up. She stopped saying thank you. Stopped asking how my day went. If I tried to talk about something that bothered me, she'd sigh like I was a chore. Once, in front of her friends, she joked that I was too predictable and laughed when they joined in. I laughed too, not because it was funny, but because I didn't want to look weak. The worst part? I kept explaining it away. I told myself she was stressed, that everyone has phases, that marriage means patience. I convinced myself that ignoring disrespect was the same as being mature. It wasn't. It was me teaching her that she could treat me however she wanted, and I'd stay. And once that lesson was learned, she never unlearned it. It happened at a small get-together, nothing special. Just drinks, loud music, her friends sitting around the table like a jury that already made up its mind. Someone asked how our marriage was doing. Before I could answer, she laughed and said, honestly, if he ever stopped trying, I'd replace him in a week. Everyone laughed. I felt it land in my chest, heavy and wrong. I waited for her to look at me, to wink, to signal it was just sarcasm. She didn't. She took a sip of her drink like she'd just said something clever. I forced a smile and played along. But inside my head something started ringing. That wasn't playful teasing. That was a warning disguised as humor. On the drive home, I brought it up. Calmly. Carefully. She rolled her eyes. Oh my God, it was a joke. Why are you so sensitive? That word again. Sensitive. She told me I embarrassed her by not laughing. That her friends thought I was insecure. That I needed to lighten up. If I wanted to keep things fun. I dropped it. Not because it felt resolved, but because I was tired of being made to feel crazy for reacting to things that clearly mattered. That was the moment I should have paid attention. Because jokes like that aren't accidents. They're rehearsals. The realization didn't hit me during a fight. It came quietly, which somehow made it worse. We were sitting on the couch, scrolling on our phones, pretending things were normal. She laughed at something on her screen and turned it away from me a little too fast. Not dramatic, just enough to notice. Then she said, out of nowhere, hypothetically, how would you react if I told you I wasn't happy anymore? Not I'm unhappy. Now we need to talk. Hypothetically. I looked at her and felt this strange sense of déjà vu. Like I'd already heard this script somewhere before. Her tone was casual, but her eyes were locked on my face, studying every reaction. That's when it clicked. This wasn't a conversation. It was an experiment. She wasn't asking because she cared how I felt. She was collecting data, measuring my response, deciding what kind of man I was going to be for her next move. I answered honestly, calmly. I said I'd want to talk, understand what went wrong, try to fix it together. She nodded slowly, almost disappointed. Later that night, I overheard her on the phone with one of her friends, laughing softly. He said exactly what you predicted, she whispered. That was the moment my stomach dropped. I wasn't her partner anymore. I was part of a setup. She was waiting for something from me. I could feel it. After that hypothetical conversation, she kept poking at me emotionally, like someone tapping a glass to see if it would crack. Small comments. Loaded pauses. Statements clearly designed to trigger a reaction. So, you've been quiet lately, she said one night. Not concerned. Curious. I knew what she expected. Anger. Questions. Insecurity. Maybe even a fight she could later use as proof that I was the problem. Instead, I gave her nothing. No arguments. No pleading. No explanations. I answered politely, briefly, and went back to whatever I was doing. The more neutral I became, the more unsettled she looked. That silence messed with her more than yelling ever could. She started escalating, sighing loudly, making comments like, I guess some people just don't care enough to fight. She wanted me emotional, reactive, off balance. But something had shifted inside me. Once I realized I was being tested, I refused to perform. And that's when her confidence started to crack. She wasn't controlling the narrative anymore. She wasn't getting the reaction she rehearsed with her friends. For the first time, she didn't know what came next. And that scared her. She finally stopped pretending by accident. We were arguing about something small. Chores, I think. The kind of argument couples have when jest problema dawno nie wiedzą. She was irritated, pacing, talking faster than usual. And then she slipped. You know this was never about that, she snapped. I looked up. About what then? She froze for half a second. Not long, but long enough. Then she exhaled like she was tired of holding something in. My friend said I should test you, she said. Just to see. To see if you'd fight for me or just accept it. There it was. No hypotheticals. No jokes. No pretending anymore. She told me how they planned it. What words to use, how long to wait, what reactions meant weak and which meant worth keeping. She said it like she was explaining a personality quiz. I asked her if she realized how messed up that sounded. She shrugged. Everyone does it. I needed clarity. Clarity. She admitted she'd already decided I wasn't enough. She just wanted confirmation. The test wasn't to save the marriage. It was to justify leaving without guilt. That's when I understood something brutal. I wasn't failing her test. I was passing my own. Because anyone willing to turn love into an experiment had already made their choice. And the moment she saw that realization on my face, real, calm, final, her confidence collapsed. She hadn't expected that. We sat across from each other at the kitchen table like strangers who had accidentally ended up in the same room. No yelling, no tears. That was the scariest part. She expected questions, begging, maybe anger, something she could react to, control, spin. I gave her none of it. I asked one thing. So what was the right answer supposed to be? She blinked. What? The test, I said calmly. What was I supposed to do to pass? She hesitated, then said it out loud. And I swear, saying it broke something in her. You were supposed to argue. Get jealous. Prove you were scared to lose me. I nodded slowly. So if I stayed calm? I failed. She shrugged, annoyed now. It showed you didn't care enough. That's when it clicked. She didn't want a partner. She wanted a performance. I told her that love isn't measured by panic. That respect doesn't come from manipulation. That anyone who tests loyalty has already destroyed it. Her tone changed instantly. She accused me of being cold, of twisting things, of making her feel like the bad guy. She said her friends agreed with her, that any real man would have fought harder. I stood up. I didn't fight, I said, because I finally saw what I'd be fighting for. That's when her voice cracked. Not from guilt, from fear. Because for the first time, she realized this conversation wasn't about fixing anything. It was about ending it. And she couldn't control where it was going anymore. The panic didn't last long. It never does with people like her. Within minutes, the story changed. Suddenly, it wasn't a test. It was a misunderstanding. A joke that went too far. Something her friends suggested, not something she actually meant to do. She said she didn't think I'd take it so seriously. She said I was overthinking it, her favorite phrase. Then came the rewriting of history. She claimed she only wanted reassurance, that she felt insecure lately, that she needed to know I still wanted her. Somehow, this turned into me failing to provide emotional safety. I just wanted to feel chosen, she said, like she hadn't just tried to humiliate me on purpose. When I didn't respond, she escalated. She cried. She apologized. Then she got angry that I wasn't comforting her. She accused me of punishing her with silence. She said couples test each other all the time. She even laughed nervously and said, "Come on, it's not like I cheated." That was the moment I realized something important. She wasn't sorry for doing it. She was scared it didn't work. Every excuse was just another attempt to regain control, to pull me back into the dynamic where she poked and I reacted, where my self-respect was negotiable. I told her one thing. You don't get to hurt someone and then decide how much damage counts. She stared at me like I'd spoken a language she didn't understand. Because for the first time, her excuses weren't landing. And she knew it. After she stopped talking, the room felt strangely quiet. Not peaceful, hollow. Like the moment after an explosion when your ears are ringing and you don't feel pain yet. I didn't feel angry anymore. That surprised me. What I felt was something colder. A clean, unsettling clarity. All the noise in my head, the doubt, the excuses, maybe I'm overreacting, just shut off. I looked at her and realized I wasn't confused about her intentions at all. I had been confused about mine. I had spent so long trying to be patient, understanding, flexible. I told myself relationships require effort, compromise, forgiveness. But standing there, watching her cycle through tears, blame, and defensiveness, I finally understood something I'd been avoiding. This wasn't a mistake. This was her character. She wasn't shocked that I was hurt. She was shocked that I didn't immediately move to fix her feelings, that I wasn't reassuring her, that I wasn't begging her to stay. And that hurt more than the test itself, because it meant the relationship only worked when I absorbed the damage quietly. I felt stupid for not seeing it sooner, for thinking loyalty meant endurance, for believing love was proven by how much disrespect you could tolerate. My chest felt tight, but my mind was calm, unusually calm. That was the moment I knew the marriage, as I understood it, was already over. I just hadn't said it out loud yet. And somehow, knowing that didn't break me. It steadied me. She was waiting for something dramatic. Anger, shouting, a speech, maybe even panic. Her body language said it all. Crossed arms, raised chin, that familiar look that meant you'll calm down and apologize in a minute. Instead, I just nodded. Not sarcastically, not dismissively, calmly. I said, okay. That was it. No questions. No arguing about intentions. No explaining how hurt I was. I didn't defend myself. I didn't ask her to explain again. I didn't try to win the conversation. Her face changed instantly. Okay, what? She asked, suddenly unsure. Okay, I repeated. If this was a test, then you got your result. She laughed nervously and said I was being dramatic. Told me I was taking it too seriously. That I was supposed to react, not shut down. But I had already checked out. I told her I wasn't interested in being evaluated by her friends. That I wasn't going to compete with imaginary standards. And that anyone who needed to test loyalty didn't deserve it in the first place. She didn't cry this time. She panicked. Because silence scared her more than anger ever could. And for the first time, she realized I wasn't playing along anymore. The shift was almost physical. 1 second she was standing there, arms tight against her chest, trying to regain control of the conversation. The next, she was pacing, asking questions too fast, repeating herself. Wait, what do you mean by okay? So you're just done? You're seriously not going to say anything else? Her confidence evaporated the moment she realized I wasn't chasing clarity anymore, that I wasn't trying to understand her, that I wasn't trying to fix this. She started filling the silence with noise, saying it was her friend's idea, saying she felt insecure, saying she just wanted reassurance, saying I was being unfair by not reacting the right way. I watched her unravel and felt something strange, distance. This wasn't guilt. This was fear. Fear that the power dynamic had flipped. Fear that I might actually walk away without drama, without begging, without giving her the emotional reaction she expected. She moved closer, lowered her voice, tried a softer tone, touched my arm like nothing had happened. Like intimacy could reset everything. I didn't think you'd take it like this, she said quietly. That sentence told me everything. She hadn't expected consequences. She had expected control. And now she was realizing she'd tested the wrong thing. Not my loyalty, but my self-respect. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't argue. I didn't explain myself. That seemed to scare her more than anything else. I grabbed my jacket slowly, deliberately. No dramatic gestures. No slammed doors. Just movement. Calm, final movement. She watched me like someone watching a door close in slow motion, realizing too late that there was no way to stop it. So, you're really just leaving? She asked, her voice cracking in a way I hadn't heard before. I turned and looked at her. Not angry. Not sad. Just clear. I didn't fail your test, I said. You did. That was it. No insults. No accusations. No speeches. I walked past her while she stood frozen in the middle of the room that had always felt like hers. For the first time, she wasn't in control of the ending. As I stepped outside, I felt something I hadn't felt in months, steadiness. The kind that comes when you finally stop negotiating your dignity. Behind me, the door stayed open. She didn't follow. She didn't call my name. And I realized something important as I walked away. Power isn't yelling. Power isn't winning an argument. Power is knowing when to leave, and doing it without looking back. I didn't leave because of the test. I left because of what the test revealed. Somewhere along the way, my wife stopped seeing me as a partner and started seeing me as something to measure, manipulate, and evaluate for her own reassurance. She thought love meant provoking a reaction. She thought loyalty meant enduring disrespect. And she thought I would scramble to prove myself, no matter how ugly the setup was. She was wrong. What I learned is simple, but painful. When someone feels entitled to test you, they've already stopped respecting you. When someone plays games with your emotions, they're not afraid of losing you. They're confident you'll stay. Walking away wasn't an act of anger. It was an act of clarity. If you're reading this and someone tells you, it was just a test, listen carefully. Healthy relationships don't require traps. They don't require humiliation. And they don't require you to abandon your self-respect to pass. The moment I stopped trying to prove my worth was the moment I finally remembered it. Sometimes the strongest answer isn't a comeback. It's leaving, calmly, silently, and for good.